What is up, everybody? I'm No Lux Given here with your afternoon snap, and every day I've been breaking down my Destroyer Galactus deck here with a focus on just one card, and today we are focusing on Destroyer himself, which is a really powerful card that I think not enough people are playing since his nerf down to 15 power. I think Destroyer can still be really strong, you just have to find the right list for him, and I think that this list is it. I think that Destroyer paired with Galactus, there's a lot of overlapping synergies. Electro is good with both cards, Wolverine is definitely good with both cards, and then you also have the Goblins. This list on the screen is only playing Hobgoblin. My newer list also plays Green Goblin, as we see my opponent showing off here, but I think that all of these cards work well with both Galactus and Destroyer, which makes them great to pair together. And the other nice thing is that Destroyer can kind of save Galactus's skin sometimes. That's what we're going to look at for a few games here, where in this first one I get disrupted by Hobgoblin. So I'm unable to activate Galactus. However, throughout this game, it seems like my opponent is playing a pretty similar deck, probably also a Galactus deck, but they've put all of their power on my side of the board in the form of negative power. And we'll be able to clean that up with Destroyer and potentially find a surprising way to steal a win. So on turn 5, I'm going to play Wolverine plus Electro, and my opponent is going to play Spider-Man into the Hellfire Club. So not going to be able to play to that location, but Destroyer is just so much power, and a surprising amount of power even, that it can often steal wins that you don't really have any business winning, and that's exactly what we're going to see in this one, where my opponent isn't playing a Destroyer strategy. Instead, they're just playing a little bit more of a typical Galactus list with Green Goblin and Hobgoblin, with America Chavez at the top of the curve. So we get to beat them in the Tinker's Workshop with Destroyer, we will tie in Machine World, and then Wolverine will flip over and be just enough to defeat Spider-Man. And I do want to break it down here because it looks like we got a little bit lucky with the Wolverine into the Hellfire Club flip, but regardless of where Wolverine landed, obviously it would have won in Machine World, or if it landed in the Tinker's Workshop, then we would have beat my opponent on differential. Here's another great example where my opponent hits me with the Daredevil emote as they reveal a Cosmo to stop my Galactus and stop me from going down that path. Kind of telegraphed it, this one, with the Hobgoblin, but we can still throw down an untelegraphed Destroyer and throw my opponent off completely. So that's the plan here. We just have to figure out where we want to go for this Destroyer, if we want to throw that into the Shadowland or into the Danger Room, and I'm going to go for the Danger Room, and then we'll blow up the stuff in Shadowland and we'll blow up our Galactus in Atlantis, and I'm just hoping my opponent doesn't play there because we're currently winning by 12 in that location, so they might just ignore it in favor of playing in other spots, and then we'll blow up Galactus and win there with 0 power. And that's kind of what I was talking about. Hobgoblin, great card with both Galactus and with Destroyer, and in this game we get to take advantage of that and find the win. And I'll wrap it up here with one more example of a Hobgoblin disrupting my Galactus, but we're still going to have enough tools to take my opponent out here. We've got Daredevil Sight on the 5th turn, and my opponent snaps. I never really mind when my opponent snaps into Daredevil, and I can see that we're actually pretty likely to win this game. I can Professor X in Wakanda to beat whatever plan here is happening with Angela, and then next turn, my opponent is very, very unlikely to be able to drop 15 power to that one remaining location. They might think that they're winning by 7, and so they might think that they're winning this game, but we're going to clear out that -7 and get the win here with Destroyer, despite the fact that my opponent is going to drop some nice cards here this turn. So Wolverine, if that lands back into Washington, D.C., it would have meant that my opponent was playing 10 power there this turn, but instead they're only actually playing 6, and that's not going to be able to stand up to Destroyer. Destroyer is just a lot of power. It's 15 power on the final turn, which is a lot, and I know that there's a lot of Galactus lists that are running Death and Null, and I've played those before, and those are a lot of fun and can definitely be fun to win with, but this deck is more about consistency. And sure, sometimes you might not have enough power to win with Destroyer, but oftentimes 15 power is enough to take it. In this game, we can play Hobgoblin here into Xandar, or we can play Spider-Man. Both of those are pretty good options here. I just decided to go for Spider-Man when you have the option on turn 5, and then we'll lock my opponent out completely and be able to win with Destroyer. Actually, doesn't wind up happening in this one, as my opponent Cosmos me, and then I'm pretty glad that I didn't go for the Hobgoblin. But still, now I can play Destroyer, and my opponent has actually set us up with Cosmo, so I'm just going to get plus 16 power right here, and my opponent was already up by 3, so they're probably thinking adding 12 more power should definitely be enough to get the win, but Destroyer is just a little bit stronger. Here's the full list. I'll throw this on the screen just to talk about it for a moment, but Armor, Cosmo, and Professor X make up the core Destroyer package, allowing you to protect your other cards, though in this deck there's not that many other cards that we really need to protect. I don't care about protecting Electro or Wolverine, I'm just as happy to destroy those cards. The main card that I'm really trying to protect is Atuma, and then obviously Hobgoblin and Green Goblin in that version of the list. We can blow those up as well. Spider-Man and Daredevil and Wave, take it or leave it. Sometimes I'm looking to protect those cards, and if we can protect them with like Professor X and grab a win in one location, then that's obviously pretty nice to do. I will occasionally Wave or Electro out early Destroyers as well, and I think there's a lot of cool examples with Destroyer plays in the Kang video as well. Again, that's a slightly different list. I dropped Cosmo and Daredevil for Green Goblin and Kang, but Kang provides some nice, interesting insight where you can see if your opponent is planning on disrupting your Galactus and then change your plans accordingly. This is like a pretty straightforward Destroyer game. We're not doing anything super crazy in terms of using Cosmo or Professor X in any crazy way. This is just a straightforward win with Destroyer. So thought this was a good time to show it off. Hobgoblin does a great job in Jotunheim to win that location. So Destroyer just has to win one of the other locations. And Hobgoblin often does this, I found. It is just so much power, and the fact that it takes up a space in your opponent's lane means that it can generally win a location, especially if you can find a location like Sewer System or Necrotia, or in this case Jotunheim, where you are already getting additional negative power on any cards that get played there. So I think that that's really good. We also get to destroy Wolverine and Electro in this one, so we're really getting the full usage out of Destroyer. And while Armor and Cosmo are really good in terms of protecting things from your Destroyer, and I know I've brought this up before as well, they're also good at protecting your Destroyer, because now on this final turn, I can play Cosmo in the Destroyer lane to protect myself from Shang-Chi, which is like one of the few ways that I lose this game. The other way is probably like Odin to pass me back my Hobgoblin. That would be pretty annoying. So if we had Cosmo for the Jotunheim lane and Armor for the Destroyer lane, that would probably play around everything. And I'm kind of debating which one I want to care about more, but it's probably pretty likely with just a Silver Surfer deck that my opponent is playing. They probably don't have any of these things. So I'm just going to Cosmo on the Destroyer. It's much more likely they just have a random Shang-Chi, and then I'm going to throw Spider-Man into Jotunheim and my opponent retreated. And I'll wrap this video up with a fun one. Remember, if you want to see more Galactus Destroyer content, hit that subscribe button and check out the playlist in the video description to see the videos where I covered each of the other cards in the deck, as well as just some fun videos. I had one about like trolley plays that I made with this deck. This one's kind of a trolley play, almost made it into that one. And I think I will probably do like a District X video as well, just because there's some really silly random moments that can come up with that location. And this game's kind of random as well, because we also have Mindscape. So we're going to be swapping hands with my opponent at the end of the turn. And we're going to start off here by using Spider-Man plus Professor X, which which is a really cool combo. Talked about that a little bit in the Spider-Man video, but I'm going to show it off in this one. By the way, my opponent's board is kind of bugged. Iron Fist moved over. It didn't move over visually, but it is currently in Mindscape. As you can see that the workshop has gone down to 4 power and Mindscape is up to 6. But we're currently losing in Mindscape by a differential that Professor X can cover. Kind of a weird way to word that, but Professor X is going to win us Mindscape this turn, and then we'll see what we can do on these final turns here. My opponent going to use White Queen that is kind of infused with Iron Fist and the Hulkbuster, at least artistically there, and then we draw Destroyer on turn 5, so I'll be able to play that, and that will probably be enough to win it in the Danger Room. It's a little bit risky because the Danger Room could destroy Destroyer, but it's a risk that we gotta take if we want to get the win here. So that is ultimately what I'm going to settle on, and my opponent actually helps me out tremendously in this one. They're going to play Arrow to pull Destroyer over into the Tinker's Workshop, which is kind of a bummer, and now they could potentially win the Danger Room on the final turn with a Tuma, which is just a lot of power. And instead, we have kind of a cheeky play that we get to make here. I got a little bit confused because I see the Galactus in my opponent's hand, though they stole that with the White Queen. It's a confusing game, made more confusing by the Iron Fist that fails to show himself in Mindscape. But all of those bugs aside, there is a really cool way that we can still win this game, and that's with Doctor Strange pulling Destroyer over into the Danger Room. I just have to hope that my opponent doesn't notice, because this is their Doctor Strange. I might be playing up against a bot here, I'm not totally sure, but Doctor Strange is really cool because it can pull over Destroyer to win in the Danger Room, and also, if my opponent decides to play my Galactus, then Doctor Strange is more power in that location as well. We just have to hope that it doesn't blow up in the Danger Room. That could definitely be a possibility. We'll see what my opponent plays for here, but my goal is to just move over the Destroyer, and then that's 18 power in the Danger Room on the final turn. Should be enough to take it. My opponent going to play in a Tuma plus a Daredevil, which is a ton of power in both locations. However, Destroyer, again, just going to be that much stronger. That's going to be it for me today. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm No Lux Given. Peace.